I've got the cart and I've put this thing in the cart before, so maybe that's what I'll just do. Kind of mount it right here somewhere and hope it's good. All right. Okay, so there's the other side of the apron. Both aprons are out. I now probably gonna try to get this subframe out. Kind of to that point. You can see in here, this rail is almost worse than the other side, and the impact was on this side. It's just crazy to me. It must have like folded this way, and then when we pulled it, it made this massive kink, and this is just real bad on this side. I hadn't expected it to be this bad on this side. But it is what it is, and we're gonna fix it. So I haven't fully figured out my plan of attack for the subframe. There's a couple bolts, but the rack and pinion is attached, and the axles are still attached to the transmission, and I don't know what my plan is here. I don't want to take the transmission out, I know that. You can see it split this weld here on this rail. And these are all things I'm gonna have to kind of undo. I'm gonna have to undo some of this stuff from the from this rail and then weld them back in. And that's what I'm gonna get a good grasp. Like I said, I'm gonna try to take the strut towers off of that one. And I think what I might end up doing is take the upper part of the radiator support. So this whole thing here, this was a question on one of your last Blue Collar Kyle quizzes, right? So this is called an upper tie bar. And you saw that Honda that he had that I was asking questions about. I believe it was a Honda, was it a Honda? No, it was a Nissan Versa is what it was. It came in 3 sections. So the question was, what specifically was he working? So sometimes the center section welds on, and then this section welds on. And that's called the upper tie bar left, center, and right. That's very important because that's how it's wrote on an estimate. So if you ever look at an estimate, you say, what's an upper tie bar? Well, this is an upper tie bar. And tie bar meaning, obviously, it ties everything together on the upper side of everything, right? So my thought was, a few minutes ago, I had an idea, is maybe I was just gonna drill this off, because there's really like 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think there's one here. I think it ties together with bolts. So there's like 8 to 10 spot welds on this thing that could come off very easily. And then that would leave another level of complication. That way I can, I don't think I'm gonna cut this off of this side. I think I'm gonna try to take this structure out of the center, kind of just take it out, and then take this off, and then just the apron, because the apron kind of connects and flows down into this. This is the apron here. And I kind of want to leave the rail intact to the apron, but the only thing I have to do is get this off. So I think that I'm gonna work a little bit on dissecting some of that, and I think I'll be good. The only thing I'm really gonna have to be cautious of at this point is where the rails attach to the radiator support, so they don't, I mean, it almost looks like they're bowed together, like how they're sitting on the stand. So Just gonna try to be really cautious about how I take this stuff apart. Probably put it on a couple stands and work one side to the other. Get the top strut supports off, and then kind of just slip this thing in. And it looks to me like they almost cut the thing right at the firewall too, which is good and bad. Like it would be cool to take it back that far, but on the other hand, I really need the point of reference, which is the subframe bolts, because I really want to make sure that when the subframe goes back on, nothing is tweaked or anything like that. So I think what I'm going to try to do is figure out the wheels, get the wheels off, and then see if I can take the bolts out of the subframe and if the subframe will come down far enough. The other thing I've done in the past, which might not be a terrible idea at this point, is to take the suspension, since I can almost take the whole suspension and everything right down and put it on the ground at this point. Brake stuff is unhooked, so I could just kind of unhook the brakes. And then I could, if I were to take the tops out of this here, off the top of the struts, and these bolts out, I could put this thing right on a jack stand on the ground right there. And that would be probably my best bet for doing this, to be honest, and then just tie the transmission up to the firewall somehow. I think that's gonna be my plan, to be honest with you, now that I'm just thinking about it. So okay, so here you have it. I put the subframe back in. The struts are reattached and all the points they need to be attached. So the suspension in its entirety is hanging. You can see I cut about halfway through where the subframe is in the frame rail to try to retain the back bolt that came out from back here and keep what we can, so that I can measure back and make a cut outside, inside, outside. Like I said, this one really stinks on this side. I wasn't planning on this being that bad. And it's crinkled real good, so I've got to take this one back a little further than this one. I also have to be conscious. There's quite a bit of bracing on the inside of this frame rail. I don't know if you can see in there. Not really. I don't know if I can put a light in there. Let me see if I can get a light. All right, so you can see there's bracing in there, and I think what you're seeing for bracing is actually where the subframe bolts. I think this right in there is where the subframe bolts up in. So I think what I'm going to try to do is make a cut just back behind this. And it's going to be impossible to weld some of that stuff in there. I know that. I might be able to leave this piece intact and just peel this outer off, but I don't know. It might all get welded together. And it looks to me like there's plenty of room in there. So I think I'm gonna stop on this for now, and like I had said before, and probably in some of the emails I've been sending you guys or stuff on the stream, that I'm gonna start on a GMC project. Kid wanted it done for the 11th, which is like this weekend, and he also told me he's coming home and he like travels all over and wallpapers hotels. And that's like his job, I guess. He has a wallpapers hotel, so which is cool. Paints and wallpapers all over. But I did a big job for him over the summer, last summer, and some of you probably heard about it in the beginning of the year there, where it was a pretty nasty wreck, and it was a big job. But he bought a new truck and he wants some stuff spiffed up on it, so he's coming home for a while because of all this crazy stuff. Sounds like they're not doing much for work, and yeah, so that's what I'll be doing on the next one. So giving you a couple ideas on different products and different procedures to do some things and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna get the GTI moved outside. I did some stuff on this too. I didn't videotape any of that, but put a new air filter on it, and I put this catch can in it here. New catch can with new catch can lines. This is all for crankcase ventilation, right? So I brought this down. I was gonna have Mr. Bosnich weld this piece in for me, but school ended before I could get him to do it. So I had a local machine shop that I use quite a bit before I started at the school weld a little bung on here for this hose. Basically, this can collects the crankcase ventilation and all the crankcase vapors, takes all the moisture out of it and settles to the bottom, and there's a little valve on the bottom I can open up. So you've got a port here that comes out of the crankcase, and then you've got a port here that comes out of the valve cover, and it takes the vapor, puts it in the can, and then sucks it back out and puts it back into the intake just to keep all the pressure down inside the crankcase. And I think that's what was causing some of my problems last year. I've had like some smoking issues with it, and I think it was just blowing oil out of places because it was over pressurizing the block. So yeah, I took this thing for a good ride last night. Just need to get it tuned, and then it's like ready, really ready to go, like really ready. So all right, stay tuned for what's coming next. Okay.